Welcome to a maintenance merging Blender to Bforartists with week 26 of 2025. So first things first, we're going to have a Bforartists clone, we're going to have a Blender clone, we're going to copy the Blender clone from last week's date and pull the current Blender main as a backup. The reason we do this is so that we have a snapshot to compare an old Blender with a new Blender so we can kind of see progress without needing to comb commit logs. This is good for troubleshooting. Same with Bforartist, we can also have last week's clone and current master before we begin. So let's pull that. We'll just do a make update on the Blender. So this is so that we can always revert an issue that we have. Now that we're done, we're going to clone the Bforartist repository. This is where we're going to do our work in a self-contained way. So using Tortoise Git in Windows 11, we have a handy right-click context menu so that it becomes easy to clone things. So let's clone the sync Blender main. This may take a moment. Okay, now that we have done our update, now we need to add Blender as a remote. To do that, we'll be using a git add Blender with the project path. This will now add inside of the settings of the folder sync Blender main. In the remotes, we can see now that we have Blender, the LFS fallback, which we did with the make update, and the origin. Origin is us, Blender is them, which means we can now pull from both and merge both. Now let's move on. Let's fetch from Blender. I'm just going to rename the sync, make it a nice color, and let's fetch Blender. Since we did the make update from the origin of Bforartist, hopefully this won't error. Just give me a moment. Okay, looks like we have some multiple configurations for some submodules in the add-ons branch, the add-ons contribution branch, so it's skipped. These are just issues that we don't really need to worry about. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to check out the Blender main and see what happens. It says we have some issues with the LFS, things are missing. It means we need to turn off the smudge. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to go install skip smudge, LFS install skip smudge. Check out for us the main. Now it will do it by skipping the smudges. Then we're going to revert the skipping smudge because it's good to have it. And then we can do a git status to see if we managed to check in. Now we're in the Blender main, everything is fine. Just double check the LFS to make sure everything is fine. Looks like some of the files are missing, so we need to do now make update. As you can see, it is starting to download, but it's skipping things because they're not available locally. So to do that, we often need to just manually fetch all from LFS just to make sure everything is fine. This will fetch both from Blender and the origin, and then we can check them out locally. This may take a moment as well. The reason why this is getting so confused is typically because LFS pointers are currently confused by two different areas to refer to, remote and origin. And we have our own LFS files on the origin, we have the Blender files on the remote. So when you try to add the remote from Blender, it's not downloading the correct LFS files, or it's downloaded some Bforartist files and things are not good. So now we're force fetching the LFS from both the origin and the remote, and then we will check out any new files from Blender and the origin just to make sure. Blender first, Bforartists later, so that when we check out Bforartists LFS files, it will overwrite any Blender ones just in case, and any new Blender files would be added in the future for the merge. So this may take a moment. So just to overview, we basically added the Blender remote. We tried to make an update and we've skipped smudge and force checked out the Blender main, but we still have LFS issues because the LFS files did not download correctly with the make update. It is confused. So we force check out, it is still confused. Here's the evidence on all of the branches because files will be missing on some branches. So we will fetch the origin, then check out Blender, check out the origin, pull Blender, pull origin. And I did this just to make sure to see everything is fine, everything is fine. And with that, we can do a JIT FSCK, LFS FSCK, and it will be up to date. So now if we look at the JIT status, we managed to pull all of the missing LFS files from checking out both the origin and the remote into where we need things to be after we've tried to make update. So if we do make update now, it shouldn't be confused anymore. And everything's fine. So now we have a clean Blender branch, a clean Bforartists branch, clean LFS files by manually pulling them in. Managed to check out by skipping the smudge to get the Blender main branch into the repository, because if not, it will complain. And we're all okay. We pushed through the errors, so let's begin the merge. Okay, so now that that is done, we have both remotes. We've got both remotes in the sync Blender main. We've got the backup of last week's Blender copy with today's Blender copy from the date that we pulled. I often take note of when I do that with a little date here. So I pulled today, 1st of July, and around 13:30, and now we've fetched and pulled from everybody. Everything is up to date. So now let's just do the routine. So first we fetch from all, which is basically fetching from the origin and from Blender. Then we're going to check out to our master. And it's often good practice to do a hard reset just in case, to clean any residual files. And we'll clean the repository so there's no residual files. And with that, we should have a clean, up-to-date master. So we take a look. It looks like there's still some issues in the commit. Shouldn't be the case. So this is due to the submodules having a hard time. So we're going to just rebase and check out and reset and clean the submodules. And then do a make update to make sure everything is squeaky clean. Sometimes the submodules lose their heads and are no longer on main and get dirty, and when a make update happens, it doesn't clean that up. So now if we do a git status, the origin master is squeaky clean. So let's just make sure we've pulled the origin master rebase. Everything is good, so we got their timeline. So now we're going to now check out the Blender sync main branch, unless it already exists, or we're going to make a new branch. So you have two options here. You could check out the sync Blender main if you've done it already, or you can create a new branch based on the master and call it merge week. whatever we're working on. So I'm going to do the latter, week 26. Now we switch to a new branch called merge week 26 to set up and track from the origin master. It should be clean. It is clean. And now we don't have to merge the master in because that is already clean, and now we can move on to the next step. So first things first, we need to merge LFS. So let's do that. We're going to first check out Blender. It didn't download anything new because I just recently did it. I'm going to check out the origin. I'm going to fetch everything from Blender's all, just in case we missed anything. It may take a moment. It goes through all the files, and then it should be done. Okay, it shows things are missing. So let's just fetch from us. Those are the missing files. And then we'll pull from Blender again, and then pull from us. It's always Blender first and then us to make sure that our files have overwritten any of the LFS files that Blender has done, including icons, blend files, or any other type. So here it is, it's downloaded all the references and succeeded. We'll pull from Blender, pull from the origin, and track any new files. In this case, we can do the jet lfs fsak to just check if everything is okay. It should say it's okay. This shouldn't happen now. And now we can do a git add to add any of the new files. And let's push to the origin. Oops. Let's copy this. Git lfs push to origin. Origin to the week. Merge week 26. And this will push all of our files that we've just added from pulling from Blender and our own origin to overwrite and merge them together. Once this finishes, we can also push this to the master for the future. In this case, it should be relatively uninvasive since we pulled from our remote and the Blender remote. It shouldn't break anything inside of the master in general. It's usually aggregate by adding and then pushing, so it should be fine. Let's see if this works. It worked. When it doesn't get to this level, it means you haven't pulled or checked out or fetched the LFS correctly on top of each other, and it won't be able to upload because the pointers will be broken. So let's push to the master now that the branch worked fine. This will repeat the process. Okay, so let's begin. First, we're going to check out to the Blender main. We're just going to make sure we're behind a commit by 1. So we're going to make an update, make sure the libs are okay. And then we're going to pull the Blender main rebase, which it does automatically already. This is a manual rebase. Alright, now we're up to date. We've pulled Blender. Now we're going to check out the branch that we're currently using, which is the merge week 26. And then we're going to git merge main. This will cause an automatic merge fail, which means we now have to resolve the merge. So to do that, you go into your sync Blender main, and with TortoiseGit, we have a nice little conflict resolve dialog. You could also use VS Code or Vim or any type of solution, but I like VS Code because it shows all the conflicts. and using the VS Code merge settings, I can connect it to use the merge tool of meld, which I like, which compares the base origin, the merged result, and the Blender remote. So let's take a closer look. The user default theme means there has been a Blender change to the theme. This can be resolved from our head. We would have to rebuild it from any chance. So we'll take note, rebuild that. Other key files that are important are the BLUI Python files. Space 3D is usually very big and will require comparison with the Blender. The mods are C++. In this case, these changes has a bias for Bforartists with the change of the API. RNA node tree will require a comparison with a previous Blender version to see what changed, because if we take a closer look, this is impossible to merge. So I'm going to press enter. It should load up. No, I did it twice. Okay, so usually the conflicts happen here at the footer, but it will invalidate whole blocks of code when just one line has changed. So this is because we added icons to nodes, and here they do not. So this would need to be compared with Blender. To do that, this is where we use the snapshot history. So I'm going to get the RNA node tree .cc first from the Blender repository, which is the current date, and I'm going to get the same RNA node tree.cc from the backup copy of a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to take a comparison to see what changed. If we take a closer look, we have new shader node combine HSV and RGB. This was removed from the old one, so I probably need to swap these around. HSV and RGB. So if we take a look at our previous file and just merge from here, search in here, separate node shader RGB and HSV would be removed. And then same with composite node combine XYZ and curve vector. Those were removed as well. Node map value, node math was removed, and separate XYZ was removed, and node texture was removed. So in this case, I'll just go through each one and remove it from our changes here. So HSV is now nuked, which means we have, it's unfortunate though. But yeah, that's basically it. So basically you go through every single file, you manually solve them. Some of them are easy, some of them are hard. Most of our changes are noted by BFA, and other changes are pretty obvious or not. Most conflicts are pretty trivial. Some of them are really big, especially if they refactor things. And once you're ready, you resolve your file by right-clicking on it and resolving it. And then once you're done, you build your new branch from here, like a debug build, a light build, or a release build, if you want to check GPU issues. And if it succeeds, you load the interface. If the interface has crashed or has some issues and doesn't load anything, then that's a Python issue you would need to resolve, usually caused by typos. And once you have everything loaded up and everything's relatively working fine and compiling correctly, then you can commit to the merge week 26, push, and then request a pull. And then we're good to go. Oh, when you request a pull, that's when you start to see the GitHub Actions compile on Linux and Mac and Windows. If all three succeed, then we know that we can pull this to master and we live for another day. So thanks for watching. Good luck.